Hi all and welcome back. We're going to go into some intel now on the background of the extraordinary show we did last Saturday. And I am reliably informed it's the first time in history that a group of humans did that type of collective revoking of the dark forces on a mass public scale that spanned the globe, and it certainly is the case for this era of time. What may have appeared as a bit of a strikeout against the Destroyer and the Dark Forces, I can assure you it went much further than that. Much further than even this planet, or even this universe. Our collective lack of the mystical knowledge, the ancient secrets, the hidden hand, and the unseen worlds and entities had left us all literally and figuratively in the dark. That, via this show, and many other researchers around the world, that is no longer the case. We are rising not only out of our slumber, but the thick, dark soup that surrounded us, not only on this planet and humans, but billions of planets and the variety of living beings. This planet is a nexus planet. It was the key, and required many attempts to correct things. Some stayed in here. Some flitted in and out. Many were slain in incalculable numbers. And some pick and chose their moments to interact. Much was learned in defeat of all the other attempts to free this universe. Items were collected and stored. Items were lost and had to be retrieved. Like a giant video game of collecting trinkets that would enable us to achieve certain goals or attainments. Without those objects, the game was a futile exercise in death and destruction. Key aspects were in the game. Some had to be transmuted, some destroyed, some who were allies turned and went dark and added to the difficulty of the tasks. Trust was eventually lost, as more and more fell into the clutches of the dark, but as always, hope springs eternal. Fresh ideas, new strategy, higher understanding, and higher frequency beings came in and set to work that involved several individuals, both known and not. Stealth was the order of the day, but the beacons were glowing and became obvious to the dark forces, and so they became the target of attacks, or fell for the 6 hooks or the power and seduction of the easy left-hand path. The Destroyer is now gone, and that has brought much celebration far beyond here. That entity was all-pervasive and came in many forms, and the knowledge and awareness of that entity was better known outside of here than in here. In my vision from around 2012, early 2013, one of those forms was a Naga, a giant serpent that housed itself within the bowels of this planet, infecting from within, as within, and so without. This will explain my warning of grounding, and may also explain the piece I did back in February 2018 when I posed the question, is Mother Earth the source of infecting all beings who reside or come here? As not one species appears to be able to or acted in the correct manner under the guidance of Source. It was not just the Destroyer who wreaked much damage and suffering, it had armies of minions, seduced not by the power of love, which is the harmonic source frequency, but the love of power. It is the mirror reverse magic spells again. Power of love became the love of power, and all too consuming. I could spend the rest of this show detailing the armies of the minions, but one stood out in our recent epoch of time, aided and abetted by his family, some of whom were bastard offspring, Anu, the symbol of the rose, known as the poisoned rose, and boy was he a thorn in the light-sided legions. Blinded by the power, he fought his own father, Alulu, and he took over the reins, and what followed was a reign of death, destruction, pain and suffering, which will not be forgotten for those who were affected, or by the many souls who died in the many battles, some of which are here today on this planet with us. Whilst it will not be forgotten, it is pointed at this point to remind you all that you must forgive them. No ifs or buts. Not forgiving them is keeping you in that failed timeline, marring you in their dark frequencies and traumas. That only drives anger, hatred, and other malevolent thoughts that are not conducive to your well-being or the planet. The planet feels and absorbs those frequencies, and like magnets, like attracts like. Letting it go is a must. It is what Source would want you to do. And remember, some of you will have played significant roles in the carnage and came back here to work off your karma for the light side. Perhaps now you'll fully understand the importance of shadow and inner work. It was not just this lifetime. Forgive them, for they know not what they do, is essential in this next phase. The poisoned rose, Anu, like the destroyer, is no more. Also the entity known as the Nemesis, another seven-headed serpent associated in mythology as the Red Dragon, was linked with the Nibiru story. That will no longer be returning either. That was slain back in 2013. I'm going to request all who are listening to this show to take part in the next stage of the process, and we're going to do another clarion call on behalf of humanity and other beings. They were trapped just like you. Our call out will be the release of the souls of 1,000 years. Repeat after me. We, the people, as representatives of Earth, and all living things on her, request to break out the souls of 1,000 years that demand to be free. Release them and bathe them in light. Thank you. Our message will be heard far and wide, like on Saturday. The events that normally surround the dates of the 21st to the 25th of December of sacrificing both vessels and souls has been the quietest on record. Those dates next year will be completely different. These dates within the epic scale of time are more modern than many will realise. Thousands of years, yes, but not millennia. There was no 21st through the 31st date at one point in our history. There was a period of our history when the 13th zodiac was included, and we had 13 months, not 12, until they hid the serpent, which is likely symbolic of the destroyer. Our year was 13 months of 20 days. So there was no December the 21st winter solstice. Our year lasted 260 days, which means our planet was closer to the sun back then. It then went, but not confirmed, to 320 or 325 days, and then later to 360 days, and now we have 365 and a quarter days. Why and how can that happen? Because our planet we call Earth, and Earth just means an inhabited planet. The real name was Midgard Sol 3. Was moved via the drive engine contained within the planet. And for the benefit of the bloodline families who will think that they will be firing it back up and returning to their home in the Sirius constellation, that would be a no, not happening. Moving it has many permutations and connotations. Science will tell you we would all burn up being closer to the sun, and yet no one has asked why Mercury has not crumbled into dust yet. With that type of heat that they describe, chunks of the planet being heated to those extremes would have long been melted and broken off into space. Mercury would or should be venting out like a comet. Mercury ranges from 43 million miles down to 28.5 million miles away at its closest approach. It is not magic rock. It is only the same rock that we have on Earth. It makes no sense. So Earth was moved, I suspect, to change the frequency's dynamic. Remember, life can only be in regions of space that can sustain it. It needs the 7 primary matters. And from what I know and what I was told in download back in 2015, we were missing large parts of the G primary matter, and something that is not known here is the GNA aspect. Without that, this planet, which was for organic living beings like the water, inorganic beings could thrive where it was once not possible. That cloud and primary matter is returning. Some of you with abilities may be able to see it or immerse in it. Earlier this year, in preparation for later events, an event of epic proportions was carried out in Egypt. That initially was done by one person, but was returned to be redone by 2, symbolising the male and female balance returning. This began the process of activating the Earth grid, and source energy will flow like never before, or at least for a very long time. Full activation of that at the time of writing has not yet been realised, but it will manifest. The pyramids themselves are a symbol of Orion's belt. The Nile represents Eridanus, the river, but the river winding is also the representation of the serpent. Astronomical symbols are all around us, and if you read the Bible, in an astronomical sense, not fake gods. Much more can be understood and garnered. Real excitement is being felt and shown outside of this planet at our progress. It is beyond extraordinary on a hidden and metaphysical level. Some are feeling it on an external level, but that is the few, as only the few have developed themselves sufficiently to embrace that reality and understanding. The key to the future is to get as many tuned into and onto their own innate abilities. We have reports that 2 covens were attempting again to do their incantations and spell casts on Tuesday morning, the 24th of December, which is the last of the 3 days of darkness, and when they reign over humanity with their spells, chants, incantations to call on and call in the dark forces for the harvest, and also prevent in some way the alignment of the light sun. Reports came back and they failed, and we are hearing all of them who took part in that ritual incantation died. If that is the case, it is a clear sign their dark practices are coming to an end. My own intuition into that event is their time is up, of using magic for their own ends and purposes of the dark forces. Our revocation Saturday rubber stamped that significantly. Word of warning for all witches and covens, dark and light, light and dark magicians, your practices came at a price previously. Now it comes with added oomph. Those practices will not be tolerated going forward and will come with heavy consequences. If the 2 covens dying en masse is confirmed, there is your answer. But you are free to go ahead and make our day if you wish. Please quit that practice. You have no idea the damage you have all caused, whether knowingly or not. You now have a choice based on the real knowledge of your practices. Continue to do it and you are operating as a dark-based entity, or quit and come and help us repair the damage you have all done. All magic and witchcraft-based practices, light or dark, were all lazy-ass based tech that call in the dark forces and spirits, when if you work on yourself, you will attain many abilities. You were all seduced by the lazy-assed left-hand path. We'll be back shortly.